all you badasses. It's time for GunsInThe701.com's Badass of the Week once again this week. And this week, we're going back in time to around 1912 as we talk about Charles Joughin. Now, Charles Joughin was born in Patton Street next to West Float in Birkenhead, England. That was on the 3rd of August, 1878. Now, he first went to sea at age 11 in 1889 and later became a chief baker on various White Star Line steamships, notably the RMS Olympic, Titanic's sister ship. Now, on the 17th of November, 1906, in Liverpool, England, he married Louise Woodward, a native of Douglas on the Isle of Man. They had a daughter, Agnes Lillian, and a son, Roland Ernest. Neither would survive the decade. Now, Joughin was a part of the Victualling crew. Now, Victuallers is traditionally a person who supplies food, beverages, and other provisions for the crews of a vessel at sea. Now, he was on board the Titanic during the delivery of the ship from Belfast, where it was made, to Southampton. He signed on again in Southampton on April 4th of 1912. That was in the capacity of chief baker, and Joughin received a monthly wage of £12, which is equivalent to about £1,580 today, or translated into American money, $1,979.11 a month. Now, when the Titanic hit an iceberg on the evening of the 14th of April at about 23:40, or as we normally say it, at about 11:40 p.m., Joughin was off duty and in his bunk. And according to his testimony, he felt the shock of the collision. Now, word was being passed down from the upper decks that the officers were getting the lifeboats ready for launching, and Joughin set his 13 men who worked for him to the boat docks with provisions for the lifeboats, 4 loaves of bread apiece and about 40 pounds of bread each. Joughin stayed behind for a time, but then followed them, reaching the boat decks around 12:30 a.m. Joughin joined Chief Officer Henry Tingle Wild by Lifeboat 10. Now, Joughin helped with stewards and other seamen, the ladies and children to the lifeboats, although after a while, the women on deck ran away from the boats, saying that they were safer on board the Titanic. They weren't. Now, Chief Baker then went on deck and forcibly brought the women and children back and threw them on the lifeboats. The Titanic's final plunge, Joughin was at the topmost part of the ship at this point. Now, although he was assigned as captain of lifeboat number 10, Joughin did not get aboard. It was already being crewed by 2 sailors and a steward. Now, he went below after the Lifeboat 10 had gone and had a drop of liqueur, and some say just a little bit more than a drop. He then came upstairs again, meeting an old friend, the doctor, possibly William O'Loughlin. Now, he arrived at the boat deck, and the boats had been lowered. He went down to the deck promenade and threw about 50 deck chairs overboard so that they could be used as flotation devices. Again, going above and beyond what normal people do. Now, Joughin then went into the deck pantry on the deck to get a drink of water. He heard a loud crash as if part of the ship had buckled. Now, he left the pantry and joined the crowd, running aft toward the poop deck.
Hey, don't laugh. That's what it's called.
And as he was crossing the well deck, the ship suddenly gave list over the port. And according to him, threw everybody in the well in a bunch except for him. Now, Joughin climbed to the starboard side of the poop deck, getting hold of the safety rail so that he was on the outside of the ship when it went down by the head. Now, as the ship finally sank, Joughin rode it down as if he were in an elevator, not getting his head underwater. That was his words. Therefore, making him the last survivor to leave the Titanic. Now, according to his own testimony, Joughin kept paddling and treading water for about 2 hours. He also admitted to hardly feeling the cold, most likely thanks to the alcohol content he had imbibed in. Now, the prevailing thought is that alcohol will not save you from hypothermia, but a certain amount of alcohol can imbue you to be able to take the initial shock of the cold elements. So take that, science. When daylight broke, he spotted the upturned, collapsed B lifeboat with the second officer Charles Lightoller and about 30 men standing on the side of the boat. Joughin slowly swam toward it, but there was no room for him. However, a cook, Isaac Maynard, recognized him and held his hand as the chief baker held onto the side of the boat with his feet and legs still in the water. Another lifeboat then appeared and Joughin swam to it and was taken in, where he stayed until he boarded the RMS Carpathia that had come to the rescue. He was rescued from sea with only swollen feet. I'd say that's quite lucky. After surviving the Titanic disaster, Joughin returned to England, where he was one of the crew members who reported to testify at the British Wreck Commission's inquiry into the sinking of the Titanic, headed by Lord Mersey. That was in 1920. Joughin moved permanently to the United States in Paterson, New Jersey. He also served on the ship operated by the American Export Lines, as well as on a World War II troop transport before retiring in 1944. Now, after moving back to New Jersey, he remarried to Miss Anne Eleanor Ripley Howarth Cole. That's a heck of a name. A native of Leeds who had first come to the United States in 1888. Now, Annie's death in 1943 was a great loss from which he never recovered. Now, 12 years later, Joughin was invited to describe his experiences in the chapter of Walter Lord's book, A Night to Remember, which was also made into a fantastic movie. I think a little better sometimes than the Titanic movie. You don't believe me? We can fight about it. Now, soon afterwards, his health rapidly declined. He died in Patterson Hospital in New Jersey on December 9th, 1956, at the age of 78. And he was buried alongside with his wife at Cedar Lawn Cemetery in Patterson, New Jersey. Now, he was just a chef and a baker, but that's not all he was. He went above and beyond to try to save other people's lives. He was constantly thinking about the passengers and his fellow crewmen. And for that reason, I'm calling it. Charles Joughin was a true badass. Once again, we thank everybody for tuning in for our Badass of the Week here on GunsInThe701.com. Hey, you see the little QR code up in the corner? That is a cool little thing that you can, scan, click on, do whatever you got to do to get there. And go to GunsInThe701.com. Either buy some of our merch. That would be cool. We would like that. We've got some cool stuff. Also, if you want, you could just throw us a little cash. A couple bucks here and there, whatever you feel like and whatever you can spare. It helps us continue the show here, continue our podcast, and also keep our equipment up to date because Lord knows, stuff ain't cheap nowadays. We appreciate all your help and appreciate everybody who's been following our Badass of the Week on GunsInThe701.com. And remember, if you've got a story for GunsInThe701.com's Badass of the Week, well, I got an idea for you. Just drop us a line at guns@GunsInThe701.com. That's our email. And tell us what badass you'd like us to talk about. We'd love to hear from you. And until next week, when we uncover another badass of history, I'm Mike. And as my buddy Clay always says, keep your powder dry.